Thanks very much. Today we'll be conducting a patient input consultation webinar regarding the new Hepatitis C medication 3D. This webinar today is being offered by CTAC, the Canadian Treatment Action Council. We are a national civil society organization addressing treatment care for people living with HIV and hepatitis C. Part of what we're doing today is fulfilling our mandate to increase access, increase awareness about access issues to life-saving medications in Canada. Today, we're briefly going to go over the common drug review and market access. We're going to discuss the medication 3D specifically, its components and key attributes. We're going to discuss what we know from clinical trials, and then we're going to conclude an opportunity to which you can participate in. Let's discuss the common drug review. The first thing I'll say here is that CTAC is presently developing a standalone video to go over the common drug review in lay terms and with sort of easy to understand flowcharts and diagrams. It is a rather complicated process. We do endeavor to make more tools to make that process transparent to people who want to interact with it. Basically, the way the common drug review works is that once Health Canada has said yes to a drug and reviewed it to be safe and effective and says it complies with our food and drug laws, then it's available on the private market. Private insurances can offer it. But to decide whether or not a medication is appropriate for public plans at the provincial and federal level, we have another common drug review. And again, they review, again, for safety and efficacy, so consider it from a public lens. Is there a public reason that this medication above others? Does it offer more benefits for X cost, for example? So the common drug review makes a statement as to whether or not they recommend the medication in question for inclusion on public drug plans. So part of the operation includes receiving input from doing today is discussing the medication, receiving your survey data, and then collating that into a report that we will deliver to the common drug review and use it in their deliberations when they make their decision. Now, if you would like to see a common drug review brief, we have traditionally in the past gone over the common drug review for the first 10 or 15 minutes of past webinars. So while we're developing a standalone video, which should be available in early 2015, you can also check out youtube.com CTAC-Talks, which hosts all of our past videos if you want to see one of the briefs there. About 3D, for chronic hepatitis C type 1. It's manufactured by AbbVie. Now, 3D is a combination of 3 distinct treatments, each attacking a different viral process. So we've got paritaprevir, ombitasvir, dasabuvir, and in this case, paritaprevir is boosted with ritonavir. Ritonavir is working in the body longer, so it's there for pharmacokinetic. It's also worth noting, and we'll discuss this ribavirin can be added to this regimen depending on genotype and in accordance with treatment response. So really, we're looking at 3D having 3 meds, 4 if you count ritonavir and 5 if you require ribavirin. So here you can see the molecular diagrams of each component as well as the dosing for medication. Again, we see each of the components specifically what they do. Again, 3D is attacking the virus at different stages in its life cycle inside the host. So each medication is assembly, replication, or integration of virus respect. The dosage here is a little unusual. Right now, treatment regimens are working towards easing dosage burden and adherence. So we see a lot of combinations in trial right now. A lot of regimens focusing on 1 pill once a day. So with that respect, 3D is unusual. It's 4, 3 in the morning, 1 at night, and all of them with food. Antiviral meds. We need not worry about the food, just any food. And again, the Food Association helps efficacy for pharmacokinetic reasons. As discussed, we'll go over this a a little bit more, but it is a big point to consider in 3D that ribavirin can be involved. So as you'll see, manufacturers discovered GT1A from ribavirin. GT1Bs tend not to. So B are the two subtypes of genotype 1. So as discussed, 3D does depart a bit from the present trend of lower doses and fixed dose combinations. So we might want to say that the pros of this medication are its extreme efficacy and applicability across populations, but the cons would probably be associated with its higher pill burden and required addition of food. One thing I will mention here, I would have more discussion on the Turquoise 1 trial, which is still at phase 2, but its early data is exciting, and it focuses on patients who are and HCV. We're seeing more and more trials look at this population, which is very encouraging. Also encouraging are the results. Again, very early results from this trial, which show they are similar to other easier-to-treat populations. Again, SVR, sustained virologic response, is achieving what we consider to be a cure for HCV. Again, the ribavirin here can be required according to genotype, treatment history, response, and that would be particularly important to people who are co-infected with HCV and HIV, because again, they have Ritonavir issues with interaction. There are adverse events associated with 3D. They're rather common in the trials. Most participants found they experienced at least one of these adverse events to some degree. These side effects, however, were mild and tolerable. They tend to be something that patients are able to do over the course of treatment as well. Let's also keep in mind that depending on individual circumstances, ribavirin may or may not be added, and that is associated with dermatological events, rash, or itching. Added those here. For those co-infected with HIV, again, discussing treatment with your healthcare provider is very important because of the ribavirin and ritonavir content that might be worth considering of other HIV medications you may or may not be taking. So there are many clinical trials with evidence behind 3D, but we're going to look at 6 of them today specifically. In the interest of time, we're going to briefly look over each of the following. 2 studies from the Sapphire series, 3 studies from the Pearl series, and 1 from the Turquoise study. Although I will say that we briefly touched upon Turquoise 1 already, which looked at HIV-HCV co-infection. We'll look at the design, the intent of the trial, the arms involved, the results, and then we'll deliver a brief summary of those results. So the first one, Sapphire 1, is looking to show that 3D is superior to other medications, specifically to telaprevir and pegylated interferon regimens. As such, this trial is easier to treat populations, just to see how they do this treatment without patients that we're aware of. So again, we're looking at easier to treat populations, over 600 across HCV, all of them treatment naive, some 1A, some 1B, but non-cirrhotics, and not very many with significant liver damage. So the basic design is 3D plus ribavirin for most patients for 24 weeks. The other arm has a placebo in place of ribavirin for the first 12 weeks and then actual ribavirin for the second 12 weeks. So this trial is looking to respond to earlier aviator trials, which did that 3D plus ribavirin SVR 6% at 24 weeks. So most patients achieve here very high numbers at 95 and 98%. Of the 8 who failed, each had at least one resistance-associated variant. Relapse or discontinuation are here. The adverse events associated with the treatment, but they're considered tolerable and mild. Only 3 people of the 473 discontinuing due to events. And again, we attribute most of the skin-related adverse events to the presence of ribavirin. So here's the 3D easier to treat. More importantly, we need not tie a regimen to pegylated interferon in order for it to be effective. The SVR rates here are actually rather similar to other new generation HCV drugs like Sovaldi and Harmony, both of which are developed around the molecule dasabuvir. So with this, trials begin to look at just how much stronger 3D is, not just to older therapies, but among traditionally harder to treat populations. And with that in mind, so begins SAPPHIRE 2. And again, we're looking at 3D virus, measuring it against past pegylated interferon therapies, and specifically against difficult populations. So SAPPHIRE 2 is looking at treatment-experienced individuals who have genotypes 1A or 1B. We've got a number of relapsers here, partial responders, non-responders. Almost all have some level of fibrosis, and the SAPPHIRE 2 trial looks confidently at treating these people based on the results of earlier aviators, which suggested 3D would be effective in these populations. So here we see the ARM study. Patients are receiving 3D plus ribavirin, but there's a placebo arm as well. Again, this study is based on earlier work showing 3D and ribavirin can be effective, and this study looks to corroborate that. GT1B patients do a bit better. This will be a feature that comes under further investigation as we proceed. The really exciting things here are that so many people achieve SVR, but also look at the treatment-experienced patients here, the relapsers, the partial and null responders. These are very hard to treat patients, and their numbers